What up? It's your boy Mr. V back at it again with an oblique sketch. This time we're doing object number 2. Alright. So, this is a little bit more challenging because we've got this front kind of edge that's missing. And so, kind of like if you fast forward and watch my first perspective sketching video, you can use intersections of lines to help draw this one. So I'm going to go kind of fast until we get to the challenging portions of it. And I'm not going to write down all the steps this time. If you want to see all the steps, you can look to the previous oblique sketch video. So this one, first we're going to start off with a construction box. I'm going to get my height, width, and depth. It's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in width. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in height. Okay, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 in depth. Okay, so I'm going to start off right here. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And we're just going to do this one at 1-to-1 scale. Keep things simple. And I'm going to start my construction box. Drew those a little bit dark, but probably easier so it shows up on the video well. Okay, the next thing I need to do is make sure to draw my depth lines for oblique at 45 degrees. Again, technically it can be 30 or 60, but why? When we've got this grid paper, it gives us a nice, easy way to do 45 degrees by just looking off into the distance at a corner that makes sure that I'm going up and over, up and over, up and over. Okay, and I stay nice and lined up. And then that should give me a perfect 45 degrees for all 3 of these. Okay, so again, I'm just looking up here to line it up. I'll do another one right here. Make sure I am lined up that way. Oop, I'm off there. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is, again, just a very quick recap version of how I do cabinet calculations. Is I've got my original depth is 4. I'm going to divide that by 2 because I want to do cabinet style. And each grid space is a 1/4 inch, so I'm going to multiply that 2 by 1/4 inch, and I'm going to get 1/2 inch. Okay, so for each of my depth lines, you can start at 0. Sometimes I like to start at 1 just because it gives me a little bit easier place to see. So I'm going to go right here to 1/2 inch and mark a spot. Starting at 1 again, go to 1/2 inch, mark a spot right there, and do the same thing down here. So along this construction line, I'll go to 1/2 inch, mark a spot. And those should give me some pretty nice construction box lines. Okay? So the next thing I need to do is draw the faces. So it's going to start off pretty easy again. Okay, I can see this trapezoid type shape right here goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over. 5, I'll make a point there, and it goes 2 over from the top left edge, 1, 2, right there. And I'm just going to connect those 2. I can go ahead and make them object lines because I know this is an object line. And then I'll go ahead and fill in the rest of this trapezoid type shape. Okay, the next face I'm going to draw is the top, this like 7 or L shape. Okay, so for this one, I'm going to intersect some lines kind of like in perspective. So for this depth line, I'm going to go back at 45 degrees with a construction line. Okay, and then the depth of this part is 2 out of the 4. So if my cabinet depth here was a 1/2 inch, I'm going to go back a 1/4 inch. Okay, right about there, and I'm going to use that as a point for my width line. So now I can see I've got almost all of this 7 shape done, but it doesn't quite go all the way over. So I need one more line right here that intersects. So if I look here, this goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the 8 across. So I'm just going to do that from the front. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 right here. I'm going to do a depth line back, and you'll see why, because it's going to create a little intersection point that will cap off where that 7 shape is. So if I draw my vertices for the shape I'm about to fill in, it's going to be this L or 7 shape, however you want to call it, right there. So now I can take and fill in object lines for this shape. Okay, and again, I got this intersection line by coming to the front and counting 6 across because I have true height and width on the front. And technically I also do back here, so I could have tried to have estimated from here, but I'm not really right on a grid space, so it makes it a little bit difficult. So I like to go to the front and then just draw a line back. Okay? Now, the nice thing about already finding my halfway back point is that now for this little section, I've already got a spot that goes halfway back. So if I imagine where these two lines would meet, it's going to be right here, half of my depth. So I can just make a vertical line down from there. Okay, and then all I need to know is how tall this is. So this is 1, 2, 3 for this part. So I'm just going to make another one of those intersection lines. So 1, 2, 3 from the front corner of my box. And then I'll do a 45-degree line going back this way. And so just like I did up here, if I put in vertices, these 4 points are going to be where I'm drawing this little rectangle box right there. So I'll draw those in with object lines. And now, just like that, I can start on my interior lines. The nice part is I've already got some of these drawn. So these 2 vertices connect with these 2 vertices to make that slope right there. So it's going to be this one to this one and this one to this one. Okay. So again, for this rectangle, I use the front to kind of give my border or my guidelines, and then darkened those in with object lines, and then I just connected each of these 2 vertices. Okay. So for the last little section, it's really just 3 intersecting lines. So I'm going to create this one going horizontally from here, this one going 45 degrees back from here, and then they'll meet at this point, and and where those meet, I can connect from this vertex down to this vertex. So from this corner, horizontal, starting here and going horizontally across. Nice and light to start off. And then from this corner, 45 degrees back. So I gotta be careful when I'm counting here because I've got a lot of kind of lines going on. So I'm just gonna make sure that I line up the correct 45-degree line. It's going to go back right there, and those 2 are going to intersect right there. So I'll just fill those in with object lines. Okay, and now the last line that I have to make before I shade is to connect this vertex to this vertex. And if I've done everything correctly, then I should get a nice set of parallel lines right here, and it looks pretty good. Okay, so the last thing to do, again, to hide some of those object lines, or I'm sorry, construction lines, is I'm going to go in and shade. So I'll do the front with a light shade, and then the right side with a darker shade. And for this one, I might even try my hand at some realistic gradual shading. On the slope sides, is they're partially right side and partially top. So they would have a little bit more light to them than normal. Oops, that shading's going to be problematic. And now I've just gone and made the front portion darker shading, and I didn't really mean to do that, but that's okay. We'll just do the whole front face as darker instead of my lighter one. And that'll actually make it a little bit easier to do that gradient shading on the right slopes. Okay, so we'll go back in our other direction for our front shading. And so for our right side, I'm going to shade just in one direction. This is really the only right side itself. And then I'm just going to kind of go even lighter up to no shading for that part. Do a little bit darker here and just lighten it up as I go. And then once I smooth it, it's going to take care of the rest. Okay, so I'll smooth those front faces. A nice dark shading. And the right side, and then I'm just going to smooth upwards there, and I'll get kind of some realistic shading. Okay, so that's how you do Object 2 in Oblique. Thank you for watching. Smash that subscribe button.
Hey, listen!
Uh-oh, that might be copyright. Tune in next time for more perspective. So bad.